Pictish language. Pictish is the extinct language spoken by the Picts, the people of eastern and northern Scotland from late antiquity to the early Middle Ages. Virtually no direct attestations of Pictish remain, short of a limited number of geographical and personal names found on monuments and the contemporary records in the area controlled by the kingdoms of the Picts, dating to the early medieval period. Such evidence, however, points to the language being an insular Celtic language related to the Brittonic language spoken prior to Anglo. The prevailing view in the second half of the 20th century was that Pictish was a non-Indo-European language isolate, predating a Gaelic colonization of Scotland, or that a non-Indo-European Pictish and Brittonic Pictish language coexisted. This is now a minority view, if not completely abandoned. Pictish was replaced by or subsumed into Gaelic in the latter centuries of the Pictish period. During the reign of Domhnall mac Cossentin 889–900, outsiders began to refer to the region as the Kingdom of Alba rather than the Kingdom of the Picts. However, the Pictish language did not disappear suddenly. A process of Gaelicization, which may have begun generations earlier, was clearly underway during the reigns of Domhnall and his successors. By a certain point, probably during the 11th century, all the inhabitants of Alba had become fully Gaelicized Scots, and the Pictish identity was forgotten. Language classification. The existence of a distinct Pictish language during the early Middle Ages is attested clearly in Bede's early 8th century Historia Ecclesiastica Gentis Anglorum, which names Pictish as a language distinct from that spoken by the Britons, the Irish, and the English. Bede states that Columba, a Gael, used an interpreter during his mission to the Picts. A number of competing theories have been advanced regarding the nature of the Pictish language. Pictish was an insular Celtic language, allied to the Celtic language Brittonic descendants Welsh, Cornish, Cumbric, and Breton. Pictish was an insular Celtic language, allied to the Celtic Gaelic languages Irish, Scottish Gaelic, and Manx. Pictish was a Germanic language allied to Old English, the predecessor to the Scots language. Pictish was a pre-Indo-European language, a relic of the Bronze Age. Most modern scholars agree that Pictish was, at the time of the Roman conquest, a branch of the Brittonic language, while a few scholars merely accept that it was related to the Brittonic language. Buto-Rees states that evidence to suggest significant differentiation from Brittonic before c. 580 is slim. Pictish came under increasing influence from the Gaelic language spoken in Dalriata from the 8th century until its eventual replacement. Pictish is thought to have influenced the development of modern Scottish Gaelic. This is perhaps most obvious in the contribution of loanwords, but more importantly, Pictish is thought to have influenced the syntax of Scottish Gaelic, which bears greater similarity to Brittonic languages than does Irish. Position within Celtic. The evidence of place names and personal names demonstrates that an insular Celtic language related to the more southerly Brittonic languages was formerly spoken in the Pictish area. The view of Pictish as a Celtic language was first proposed in 1582 by George Buchanan, who aligned the language with Gaulish. A compatible view was advanced by antiquarian George Chalmers in the early 19th century. Chalmers considered that Pictish and Brittonic were one and the same, basing his argument on Celtic orthography in the Pictish king lists and in place names predominant in historically Pictish areas. Although demonstrably Celtic-speaking, the exact linguistic affinity of the Roman-era predecessors to the Picts is difficult to securely establish. The personal name Vepogni, recorded c. 230 AD, implies that Celtic was spoken by at least the Caledonians. Celtic scholar Whitley Stokes, in a philological study of the Irish annals, concluded that Pictish was closely related to Welsh. This conclusion was supported by philologist Alexander MacBain's analysis of the place and tribe names in Ptolemy's 2nd century Geographia. Toponymist William Watson's exhaustive review of Scottish place names demonstrated convincingly the existence of a dominant Celtic language in historically Pictish areas concluding that the Pictish language was a northern extension of British and that Gaelic was a later introduction from Ireland. William Forbes Skene argued in 1837 that Pictish was a Goidelic language, the ancestor of modern Scottish Gaelic. He suggested that Columba's use of an interpreter reflected his preaching to the Picts in Latin rather than any difference between the Irish and Pictish languages. This view, involving independent settlement of Ireland and Scotland by Goidelic people, obviated an Irish influence in the development of Gaelic Scotland and enjoyed wide popular acceptance in 19th-century Scotland. Skene later revised his view of Pictish, noting that it appeared to share elements of both Goidelic and Brittonic. It has been too much narrowed by the assumption that, if it is shewn to be a Celtic dialect, it must of necessity be absolutely identical in all its features either with Welsh or with Gaelic. But this necessity does not really exist, and the result I come to is that it is not Welsh, neither is it Gaelic, but it is a Gaelic dialect partaking largely of Welsh forms. The Picts were under increasing political, social, and linguistic influence from Dal Riata from around the 8th century. The Picts were steadily Gaelicized through the latter centuries of the Pictish kingdom, and by the time of the merging of the Pictish and Dalriatan kingdoms, the Picts were essentially a Gaelic-speaking people. Forsyth speculates that a period of bilingualism may have outlasted the Pictish kingdom in peripheral areas by several generations. Scottish Gaelic, unlike Irish, maintains a substantial corpus of Brittonic loan words and, moreover, uses a verbal system modelled on the same pattern as Welsh. Buto Rees ruled in a 2015 summary of linguistic evidence that Pictish shared significant phonological developments with the Neo-Brittonic languages, and concluded in 2020 that Pictish was a Brittonic language distinguished by its relative lack of Latin influence changes. The traditional Q-Celtic vs P-Celtic model, involving separate migrations of P-Celtic and Q-Celtic speaking settlers into the British Isles, is one of mutual unintelligibility, with the Irish Sea serving as the frontier between the two. However, it is likely that the insular Celtic languages evolved from a more or less unified Proto-Celtic language within the British Isles. Divergence between P-Celtic Pictish and Q-Celtic Dalriadan Goidelic was slight enough to allow Picts and Dalriadans to understand each other's language to some degree. Under this scenario, a gradual linguistic convergence is conceivable and even probable given the presence of the Columban Church in Pictland. Pre-Indo-European theory. John Rees in 1892 proposed that Pictish was a non-Indo-European language. This opinion was based on the apparently unintelligible Ogham inscriptions found in historically Pictish areas. Compare Ogham inscription vs scholastic inscriptions. A similar position was taken by Heinrich Zimmer, who argued that the Picts' supposedly exotic cultural practices, tattooing and matrilineal, were equally non-Indo-European, and a pre-Indo-European model was maintained by some well into the 20th century. A modified version of this theory was advanced in an influential 1955 review of Pictish by Kenneth Jackson, who proposed a two-language model. While Pictish was undoubtedly P-Celtic, it may have had a non-Celtic substratum, and a second language may have been used for inscriptions. Jackson's hypothesis was framed in the then-current model that a Brittonic elite, identified as the Brock Builders, had migrated from the south of Britain into Pictish territory, dominating a pre-Celtic majority. He used this to reconcile the perceived translational difficulties of Ogham with the overwhelming evidence for a P-Celtic Pictish language. Jackson was content to write off Ogham inscriptions as inherently unintelligible. Jackson's model became the orthodox position for the latter half of the 20th century. However, it became progressively undermined by advances in understanding of late Iron Age archaeology. Celtic interpretations have been suggested for a number of Ogham inscriptions in recent years, though this remains a matter of debate. Discredited theories. Traditional accounts now rejected claimed that the Picts had migrated to Scotland from Scythia, a region that encompassed Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Buchanan, looking for a Scythian Celtic candidate for the ancestral Pict, settled on the Gaulish-speaking Cotini, which he rendered as Gothuni, a tribe from the region that is now Slovakia. This was later misunderstood by Robert Sebald in 1710, who equated Gothuni with the Germanic-speaking Goths. John Pinkerton expanded on this in 1789, claiming that Pictish was the predecessor to modern Scots. Pinkerton's arguments were often rambling, bizarre, and clearly motivated by his belief that Celts were an inferior people. The theory of a Germanic Pictish language is no longer considered credible. Linguistic evidence. Linguist Guto Rees opined evidence for the Pictish language to amount to a few hundred individual articles of information. Evidence is most numerous in the form of proper nouns, such as place names in Pictish regions, and personal names borne by Picts according to Scottish, Irish, and Anglo-Saxon sources. Other sources include Ogham inscriptions and Pictish words surviving as loans, especially in the Scottish Gaelic language. Place names. Pictish toponyms occur in Scotland north of the River Forth. Distributed from Fife to the Isle of Skye, they are relatively abundant south of the Dornoch Firth, but rare in the extreme north. Many principal settlements and geographical features of the region bear names of Pictish origin, including Aberdeen, Aberdeenshire, meaning mouth of the River Don, cf. Welshborough, estuary confluence. Cupar, Fife, meaning confluence, cf. Welsh Cymer. Keith, Banshire, meaning forest, cf. Welsh Coed. Kirkcaldy, Fife, meaning place of the hard fort from care, fort and cald hard. Perth, Perthshire, meaning wood grove, cf. Welsh Perth. Yell, Shetland, meaning unfruitful land, cf. Welsh Isle. Several Pictish elements occur multiple times in the region. This table lists selected instances according to the Welsh equivalent. Some Pictish names have been succeeded by Gaelic forms, and in certain instances the earlier forms appear on historical record. In Inverbervie, Kincardineshire, Haberberui in 1290 demonstrates that a Pictish estuary confluence has been supplanted by Gaelic in Peer, with identical meaning. Inverrye, Fife. A possible early form, Aran 1141, may be for *Aberin, thus attesting the same in Peer for a ber substitution as above. Kindrechit, Alien, Aberdeenshire. Doldaha before c. 850. In which the first element is Dol Meadow. Strathtyrum, Fife. Tresterum in 1190, suggestive of assimilation of a Pictish tref estate to unconnected Gaelic Rath, a valley. Ogham inscriptions. Although the interpretation of over 40 Ogham inscriptions remains uncertain, several have been acknowledged to contain Brittonic forms. Buto Rees 2015 notes that significant caution is required in the interpretation of such inscriptions because crucial information, such as the orthographic key, the linguistic context in which they were composed, and the extent of literacy in Pictland, remains unknown. An Ogham inscription at the Broch of Burien, Orkney, has been transliterated as I Iranarax Ivxrox. Broken up as I Iran Urak Chuk Crox, this may reveal a Pictish cognate of Old Welsh Guracht, he/she made in *Urak Middle Welsh Gorok. The only direct continuation in Middle Welsh is once Gajirith, *Urak U in the poem known as Pays Dinigat in the Book of Ainurin. This form was eventually reformed to GW-neath, with the fourth word explained as Spirantized Pictish *crox, cross Welsh crows Latin crux, and the corrupted first word a personal name. The inscription may represent a Pictish sentence explaining who carved the cross. The Shetland inscriptions at Coningsburgh and Lunasting reading Ataconmers and Etiquettes have been understood as Brittonic expressions meaning this is as great and this is as far, respectively, messages appropriate for boundary stones. Transliterated as Iratadorans, it is possible that the Bransford stone inscription attests a Pictish form cognate with Old Breton Urho. He lies in Era, occurring at the Lamerck inscription in Brittany. Influence on Gaelic. Etymological investigation of the Scottish Gaelic language in particular the 1896 efforts of Alexander MacBain. The following are possibilities: bad, meaning cluster cf Breton-bog, brigade, meaning cluster, troop cf Welsh bagad, dale, meaning meadow cf Welsh dal, glebe, meaning legacy, monad, meaning mountain, moor cf Welsh mynid, mormer, legal term meaning earl, count cf Welsh mawr plus mayor, plus mayor plus mayor, schmauer plus mayor, plus mayor, plus mayor, plus mayor, pailt, meaning plentiful cf Cornish pals, Middle Welsh palt, fisk, meaning gash chilblain cf Welsh pisks, pate, meaning small area of ground cf Welsh peth, poor, meaning grain crops cf Welsh power, pries, meaning bush, thicket cf Welsh prize on the basis of a number of the loans attesting shorter vowels than other British cognates. Linguist Guto Rees proposed Pictish resisted some 6th century Latin influenced sound changes. Rees has also noted the potentially fiscal profile of several of the loans, and hypothesized that they could have entered Gaelic as a package in a governmental context. Several Gaelic nouns have meanings more closely matching their Brittonic cognates than those in Irish, indicating that Pictish may have influenced the sense and usage of these words as a substrate. Esrath Strath is recorded to have meant grassland in Old Irish, whereas the modern Gaelic realization means broad valley exactly as in its Brittonic cognates cf Welsh Astrad. Dun Foethier, Leo's Rath and Tom May, by the same token, attest a substrate influence from Pictish. Green noted that the verbal system inherited in Gaelic from Old Irish had been brought into complete conformity with that of modern spoken Welsh, and consequently Guto Rees adjudged that Pictish may have modified Gaelic verbal syntax. Personal names. Pictish personal names, as acquired from documents such as the Poppleton manuscript, show significant diagnostically Brittonic features, including the retention of final cint and initial WCFP August vs. Goidelic Fergus, as well as development of ora to RCFP Taran vs. G. Torin. Several Pictish names are directly paralleled by names and nouns in other Brittonic languages. Several Pictish names are listed below according to their equivalents in Brittonic and other Celtic languages. Several elements common in forming Brittonic names also appear in the names of Picts. These include *Judd, Lord Syniad, and *Res Resad, cf Welsh Rees. Equivalence with Neo-Brittonic. Although the existence of a language most closely aligned with Breton, Cornish, Cumbric, and Welsh spoken in the Pictish regions is evident, as with Cumbric, there is considerable historical debate as to extent of Pictish distinctiveness. Some academics argued that Pictish became distinguished from Brittonic in the pre-Roman era, with the supposedly distinct Pictish branch being labeled Prytanic. Others propose merely dialectal distinction and a significant degree of linguistic coevolution. In 2008, Alan James proposed that Pictish and the Cumbric of a hen Ogledd were closer aligned with each other than either was to Welsh. A 2015 examination of linguistic evidence by Guto Rees summarized that proposals that Pictish diverged from British before Neo-Brittonic emerged were all either provably false, highly questionable, or of only marginal relevance. The term Prytanic was best rejected due to a lack of evidence for distinctiveness. Rees ruled in 2020 that Pictish was a Brittonic language with substantially fewer Latin-derived attributes than others of the branch, on the basis that the new quantity system didn't operate. Below, several of the proposed linguistic distinctions between Pictish and Brittonic are discussed. Development of /excess/. Kenneth Jackson propounded that Celtic /excess/ developed /ist/ in Pictish, at divergence from the usual Brittonic development to /x/, x/, x/, x/. He attributed the following as evidence: Artqua, *Artocoxos, a personal name in the king lists, River Lossy, Moray identified with Loxon and Tolmie. Rees asserts that neither item is reliable as evidence, Artqua on the premise either of mediation by Gaelic, scribal corruption, or derivation from Gaelic or Latin elements, and Lossy on a possible incorrect identification see River Find Horn and early forms of Loston 1189. Toponyms purportedly containing Oak Silo, High in Pictland showing the regular Brittonic development have been cited as counter-evidence, but are almost certainly invalid because a different derivation is far more likely. Rees concludes that evidence is insubstantial enough at the present time to be certain about the fate of this cluster in Pictish. Fate of slash o 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 slash o. Jackson 1953, Cock 1983, Forsyth 2006 and James 2013 argued for divergence on the basis of /o/ raised to /u/ in Brittonic being retained in Pictish. The item of evidence attributed to this, a hypothesized Pictish toponymic element *auchel, consanguineous to Welsh uchel, high, is almost certainly invalid, as toponymic parallels are lacking and alleged derivatives, Ochil Hills, etc. are less problematically derived from *Oaklan, a ridge. Fate of /Odge/. The view that Pictish retained the Proto-Celtic /Odge/ diphthong until a later time than in Brittonic, in which it developed to /u/c. 75 AD was favored by Jackson on the basis of two given names, *Euroican, Rojco, Heather Welsh Grug, and Onest, cf. Welsh Ungust. Rees's stance is that survival of /Odge/ is possible, although there are issues with ascertaining the etymology of *Euroican, and the accuracy of the form Onest also recorded as Unust is uncertain. Fate of ///////// Cock and Jackson respectively proposed that Celtic /s/ and /s/, which usually became // and /h/ in Brittonic, were retained in Pictish. A single item of evidence has been attributed to each. Cairn Smeart, the name of a moor in Ross Shire, according to Cock conserved the tribal name Smerty, and was evidence for retention of /s/ and /. Simul Filius Druys appears in the Annals of Ulster 725, and Jackson took this as a personal name Simul son of Drest preserving initial /s/. Rees dismissed both as evidence. Cairn Smeart was first recorded in 1909 and is more likely to involve the Scots surname Smeart, and ethnic names are unlikely to be preserved in insignificant geographical features. Simul has no satisfactory Celtic root, and has the look not of a personal name, but instead the Latin adverb. If Cock's suggestion that Q-hit on the Lunasting inscription is analogous to Welsh *hit, as far as hit *ceti is correct, it would imply Jackson's proposal incorrect and development of /s/ to /h/ as in the rest of Brittonic. The undermentioned I suffix in the personal name Bridei, if it is a Pictish reflex of Sagjo Seeker, may favor /s/ to /h/, although a different etymology is possible. Influence from Latin and the new quantity system. Rees 2015 gave the view that Pictish, while partaking in some Latin influence, simultaneously resisted it to a greater extent than the rest of Brittonic. Irrespective, Forsyth 1997, Taylor, and Aitchison 2019 have proposed Latin loans within Pictish lexicon with parallels in Brittonic. *crox, cross cf. Welsh crows Latin *crox, on the inscription on the Buryan stone Orkney. *eccles, church cf. Welsh eglise Latin ecclesia according to Taylor in toponyms Ecclescraig, etc. *Leo, lion figuratively warrior cf. Welsh Lu Latin Leo. Asterisk mare, Stewart cf. Welsh mare Latin major. Asterisk part, side area, region cf. Welsh parth Latin pars, in the toponym parbroth according to Taylor. Asterisk pont, bridge, figuratively leader, cf. Welsh pont, according to Aitchison attested in toponyms, Pointac, etc., and in a personal name Brood Bont in Poppleton MS. The item asterisk Leo has otherwise been explained as a cognate of Welsh League Celtic Floios, rudder, helm. Buto Rees 2020 has further argued that the new quantity system, a feature of Brittonic speech which emerged c. 550 AD and was derived directly from Vulgar Latin, didn't operate in Pictish. This system overhauled vowel sounds, meaning stressed vowels in open syllables became longer whereas all the rest were shortened. Rees judged that the inquest didn't operate on the basis that three Gaelic words of Pictish origin, bad, dale and prias, attest short vowels, whereas the other Brittonic forms bod, dal and prise had their vowels lengthened. /j//d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/d/ d slash, d slash, d slash. In Brittonic, Celtic slash j slash developed to slash d slash cfprc nuajo w nuid. Without drawing a conclusion, Koch 1983 drew attention to items relating to the development of this sound in Pictish, two suggesting the usual Brittonic development to slash d slash, and another suggesting preservation of slash j slash, in favor of shared development with British, 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 with British. Non-Idea Pictish toponymic element from Celtic asterisk Minijo Mountain, cf. Welsh Myned. Itharnan, a Pictish personal name, apparently showing asterisk Idarnan asterisk Ijarnan iron. Itharnan is unlikely to represent Ijarnan and has been dismissed as evidence. It is recorded on the Bresse and Scooney stones as Edanan and is more straightforwardly derived from a suffixed form of the name Idern. In favor of preservation. Spey etc. hydronyms allegedly named from Celtic asterisk Esquiget Hawthorne, which gave us Bedad in Welsh. This etymological proposal for the river name Spey has been challenged, including by Rees 2015 on phonological and semantic grounds. Furthermore, there is no evidence for early forms of the name Spey in c. 1235 containing /j/, meaning a derivation from Esquiget is unlikely, and moreover that this item is of no consequence to this issue. Rees concludes that there is some robust evidence of Pictish sharing the /j//d/ with British, and no evidence to suggest otherwise, whilst acknowledging that this view is based on scant linguistic material. O'Grady-Boer, Anderson and Anderson 1961 proposed that the Pictish equivalent of Neo-Brittonic Bur estuary was an O-grade variant *Boer on the basis of toponymic forms in the Book of Deer, Annals of Ulster, and Vita Columbia por Crucen Applecross, Abodabor Aberder, etc. Catherine Forsyth adapted this hypothesis, indicating that a Bur and *a Boer may both have been current in Pictish lexicon. Rees's view is more dismissive, noting that *Apor was well paralleled in Gaelic phonology, and instead probably represents a post-Pictish Gaelic post-labial rounding of place names containing a Bur rather than an authentic Pictish form. Place name element *login. Around 17 place names containing the element *login, which is usually rendered as logi cold stone, logierate, etc., exist in northeastern Scotland. Clancy 2016 proposed, on the basis of a Pictish distribution and frequent coupling of the element with the names of saints, that *login could have been a distinctly Pictish ecclesiastical naming element. There is no certainty as to whether the element was Pictish or Gaelic, although the frequent assimilation of this element to G. Lagan hollow favors the former. Proposed retention of case endings. John Koch proposed in 1983 that in Pictish, the case ending jo/jos was realized as I, at variance with Brittonic in which this case ending was lost. Cited as evidence for this claim was the personal name Brede, apparently representing Celtic asterisk brujos, according to Evans from asterisk brud, reject, repel. Ricci's view, however, is that the I ending represents a suffix rather than a case ending. It appears in the names of Strathclyde Britons cf. Dwawe, Urui, Affray, and may be an agent suffix meaning seeker, derived from Celtic asterisk sagjo. Or else Rhys proposed that Pictish I may parallel a seemingly adjectival suffix found in Welsh river names cf. Melai, Menai, Sodai. The Welsh Bryn Hill asterisk Brunjo appears several times in Pictish toponymy Brinbane, Burnbane, Brenturk, Burnturk, etc., with nothing to suggest Cox's proposed ending. Rhys does not consider the view that case endings survived in Pictish to have any evidence to sustain it. Semantics of asterisk pett. Pictish asterisk pett was loaned into Gaelic as pett, pate, in which it has the meaning estate, portion of land. Jackson saw this as a divergent feature from Brittonic, in which the cognates Welsh peth, Breton pej generally mean thing. A different view presented by Rhys was that the meaning originated not with Pictish, but from semantic narrowing during the borrowing process into Gaelic, on the basis that, while the loan was abundant in Gaelic toponymy cf. Pitton Trail, Pitlochry, etc., asterisk pett was absent in diagnostically Pictish place names, paralleling the elements almost total non